Good afternoon to everybody. I mean, we with Marco, we decided to make with Vanessa and Judith this session. I mean, I would say something slowly different. That means the idea is just to have the presentations, and so that we will have 2 companies and 1 city presenting and 1 fund, so 1 private fund, and then the discussion will be mainly from 2 sides of the ecosystem. So Marco and me will be the part of European Commission, both on the technological and scientific part, while Matteo as fund will be more on the business side and why. I mean, a fund should invest in a city or should invest in a technology. And as well, I really would love to have the speakers making questions to the other speakers, and hopefully coming from the audience, from all of you, questions to the different speakers. We try to make it interactive. The final idea is really to show some examples of technologies, how they could be implemented in cities. So the first part, we will have the pleasure to have the City of Dortmund, that is a recently winner of EIC Award Capital. So we'll have Jan-Fritz Rettberg from City of Dortmund. We will have 2 managers of 2 startups or SMEs, EIC funded. So we will have Meyer Raphaël from SolarQuest company that is online, and Marta Cañada from SEHE that is here with us. And so we will have 10 minutes more or less presentation from the companies, cities and funds, and in between and after each presentation we will have questions. So I leave the floor, if I'm not mistaken, from the program. We will start with Jan-Fritz Rettberg, so from the City of Dortmund. The floor is yours, Jan-Fritz. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I think this should be, hopefully, or not.
I don't know. I think that, yeah, that's it.
Ah, yeah, there it is. I can't see it on this screens, but yeah, it's fine. Yeah, thank you for having us. I'm from Dortmund. Dortmund, just to give you a short glimpse, is in the middle of Northern Westphalia, and for you that do not know the German federal states, it's right in the middle of Berlin and Paris. So if you do not know Dortmund, but maybe you know our football club, the BVB. That is not the best one in Europe at the moment, but we won't talk about that now. So we are a city with about 600,000 inhabitants, with 12 city districts and 62 neighborhoods. And our idea is that we call ourselves a city of neighbors. And that is what we think is important for city development, that we are focusing on neighborhoods, that we are focusing on hands-on projects, that we are developing strategies and action plans together with the people living in the city, with the companies around in the network and in our metropolitan region of the Ruhrgebiet. Dortmund is coming from the old coal and steel industry times, and due to the structural change, we, let's say, developed our city from an industrial place to a city that has more than 20 university and non-university research institutions, that is a place for technology and innovation and services, with a quite diverse landscape of universities, but also of companies around. And with this approach, like City of Neighbors, or we call it Innovation Next Door, we are very happy that we were able to win the European Capital of Innovation Award last year. And I just want to give you a short insight of what we are doing in Dortmund. One of our main strategies in Dortmund is a smart city strategy, but our idea is that digitization has to go together with urban development. So digital technologies or new technologies have to enhance the quality of life of the people living in our city, have to increase the resource efficiency, the future viability, and therefore we derived 12 smart city fields of action that you can see below, like security and trust, like infrastructure, data platforms, all that stuff. And I'd like to dig a bit or dive a bit deeper in the energy and environment part of this overall strategy. I said we are doing hands-on projects. But we are doing the projects like actions. So we are developing action plans, but we try to bring it into an overall strategy for the cities. So on the strategy side, on energy and resource and climate, for example, we have several let's say policy guidelines in the last year. We started with a Dortmund fund that raises capital for climate protection within the city. We established a sustainability network. We developed a municipal heating program. That means financial resources for upgrading our heating system. We are developing a rooftop program which is focusing on the intensive use of roof surfaces for photovoltaic, cellular infrastructure, roof greening, and all that stuff. And this is the strategical area and the policy area where we focus on the regulatory framework. And then we have an action program that is more hands-on, and there are several like concrete projects in the field of energy, of buildings, of farming and nutrition, of course mobility and air quality, for example. To give you some examples, one of our biggest projects with it's an invest of about 125 million euro or so. We are upgrading our heating grids in the city. We have about 25 kilometers of existing heating grids from the 1950s. We are redesigning and reconstructing them and shifting from steam to hot water with an enhanced efficiency. And the goal is to avoid about 45,000 tons of CO2 emissions per year. And we are focusing on a, let's say, future safe infrastructure, that we build or rebuild this infrastructure in a way that we are able in the future to add like decentral powerhouses, combined heat and power, neighborhood heating systems, district heating, and all that stuff. Another example is more on the policy level. We offered a very attractive pieces of land to people that committed on building energy plus houses. And it is an area around the Phoenix Lake, and since 2013, we have now 89 plus energy houses in this area, and the goal is to get the 100 next year or so. Maybe it works, maybe not, but I think at least 89 is not a bad number. Another project is NOx block, where we are focusing on how to use our city infrastructure for future use cases. And the idea here is the question was, how can we make it possible to charge electric cars while parking on the streets without building so much new infrastructure? And the solution is to integrate charging infrastructure to our lampposts. We already built over 200 of these charging points, and by the end of the year we will have 320 of them. And if I'm right, we are the only city in Germany that realized such a project at the moment. London is doing something comparable to it, but if you know the German regulatory framework in the energy market, you might know that it is quite difficult to integrate another infrastructure into an energy infrastructure when you have all that regulatory stuff. Then another project within our city administration for the mobility transition. We established a new office that is connecting two departments in order to realize the large-scale projects in the transportation sector. For example, building velo routes and expand our fast cycling path, the Radschnellweg Ruhr, and to expand the city railways and the autonomously driving suspension railway that we have between the university campuses in Dortmund. And that is, it is quite new for a German administration, as German administrations are organized in silos. And so we built a kind of a horizontal layer to focus on such big projects where we bring two departments together to realize them. Yeah, and to come back to our next strategy development, so we developed an energy transition strategy 5 years ago. Last year we finished our so-called energy future strategy that is focusing on smart grid, on construction sites, on places where companies can settle and have a kind of a living lab for smart grids. And the ongoing strategies we are developing in this area is now at the moment the hydrogen strategy, where our approach is that we have no large-scale production capacities within our city, but the idea is that as a technology and innovation place, we want to be a hub for research and innovation based on all this infrastructures we already have in the energy sector. And the next big thing that is coming up on the strategy development is the question of circular economy within our city. And here to continue the idea of establishing technology centers in Dortmund. We have a lot of them for energy, for robotics, for biochem and all that stuff. And the next technology center we want to establish in Dortmund is a center for circular economy. That is just a short overview, and I think we can discuss a lot more during the next minutes. And yeah, many thanks for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, very visionary, a lot of ambition and things really done, and very difficult, I have to say, multidisciplinary. And I don't know if we have space for one question, some question here. Yes, I'm impressed by the ambition of the refurbishment of the district heating network, 25 kilometers. And I wonder which are the main difficulties that you are encountering on this. So there are major investment costs to refurbish district heating, but also some business model to secure the revenues against volatility of energy prices, and securing the connection of end users, and that they will pay a fixed or variable amount of money for their consumption, and also a trade-off between energy efficiency and providing the service, relatively low-cost service for heating. And so there are some dynamics sometimes contrasting from giving energy relatively low cost and pushing at the same time versus energy efficiency. If we are making more efficient our buildings, then the district heating becomes less profitable, let's say. How are you touching these problems?
The biggest challenge, to be honest, is all the construction sites in the city that are disturbing our transport and all that stuff. And but the questions you said are the right questions, because as you said, so there are a lot of customers in this heating grid at the moment, and the contracts will go on with the same conditions for the beginning. In the end, it is a kind of a German special thing. You might know we have these city-owned companies, the utility companies. They are focusing on well-being and all that stuff, and so the revenues, it's not their first goal. There has to be, as we say in Germany, the black zero. So there has to be no losses, and they are focusing on revenues, of course, but they are able to accept a kind of trade trade-off between efficiency and revenues in the end, because they are controlled by the city government, and the city government decides in the end, and so things are done. But it is quite complicating, because the idea is in the future to sign new contracts that are focusing more on service and not only on delivery of heating. And therefore we are integrating in the future the combined heat and power systems and all that stuff, and we are trying out the load management systems, and we are trying out to have the combined heat and power systems on the one in sometimes driven by the demand of energy, and in sometimes driven by the demand of heat. And yeah, but that is an ongoing process. So at the moment it is a political decision. There is the municipal company that is investing, and they are holding the old contracts, and that will change in the next 5 to 10 years, I think.
Yes. And on the other side, district heating is a key component to increase the flexibility of the energy systems at a broad level, because it's a perfect way to store energy.
Right.
In terms of water, hot water, and to host higher penetration of renewables, also renewable heat with solar, as we will see soon, or also excess of electricity that can be shifted and converted into it. So it's really a long-term strategy that can very well be coupled to other investment in hydrogen or decentralized renewables at city level, as you were mentioning, decentralized more than centralized power system. This is your direction. So, okay.
And one question from my side. I go more on the organizational side. What you showed, the district heating, or I mean the circular economy, all the strategies. How is the public administration in terms of talent enrollment? I mean, normally, I mean, in Italy, the big nightmare of the public administration is that it's difficult to employ senior managers that can manage such, as Marco said, multidisciplinary projects. How did your city face or solve this issue?
Yeah, to be honest, we are lucky that we are one of the biggest cities in Germany. So we are able, in Germany, the system is the bigger the city, the bigger can be the salary for the people working there. That is it is a kind of a problem for the smaller cities, but for a city like Dortmund, we are able to win some talents working within our city, because the salary is okay. It's not like in a company maybe, but it's okay. And on the other hand side, there are, as I said, in Germany, these municipal companies, and they are on the market, and they can pay whatever they want to pay for the people. So it is a kind of a collaboration between the companies that are owned by the city and the city administration by itself. But our administration has about 10 to 11,000 people working there, and that is a quite big one, but in a normal relation to the size of a city. So Cologne, for example, is twice of Dortmund and has a administration with about 20,000 people. So that is how it works in Germany, and that in a big administration you have the chance to find the talented people, but it is a challenge. It is a challenge to pick them and to know about the talents you already have in the administration, and therefore we are organizing participation events within our city administration. For example, we made a lot of workshops for the smart city strategy to bring all the departments together and to find, like in this, as I said, the office for transportation. There it was the idea. First we had several workshops on the transformation of the transportation system. Then we found out where the talented people are in our city administration, and they are put together into this one office, and that's the approach we have.
Thank you very much. We ask if there are questions from the audience. Are there any questions? No? Matteo, yes? Or
yes, I have one question. By the way, congratulations. I'm really impressed, I think, by the holistic view they've been able to take in driving the sustainability of the city. And I just echoes what Marco said. If you take something like district heating, for instance, that look like energy, I think the success of delivering that service cheaply, so affordability, but at the same time integrated with the plan, is also look at what else around is going on. And nobody will think that maybe a data center could actually be used as a source of excess heat to flow back into the district heating and having the virtuous circle between city planning and basic energy needs. And the same applies probably to things like hydrogen, which unlike. And the question I have is more, how do you, in addition to talent, but what's your secret in terms of creating that holistic approach? Is there any particular process that your town will use in order to take into account all the needs of all departments rather than going down the silos route, which is probably the typical model for administration?
There's not kind of a special process, let's say, but it's a kind of a culture and a mindset, and this mindset was born during the structural change from steel and coal into service and innovation and technology, and it was called, in former times it was called the Dortmund consensus. That means there is the common understanding of all the departments and of like chambers, like companies around in Dortmund, that it is a common goal and a common challenge to develop our city. So there's no process where I would say that we have a better process than Cologne or Brussels or whoever. I think it is a kind of a mindset, and it is a question, to be honest, of the leading personnel we have. So if you have a Lord Mayor that is focusing on such strategies, then it will work. And if you don't have this backing on the highest levels, it won't work. But there's no real secret, to be honest. Yeah, but it isn't. Then I don't know it. Maybe.
Okay. Okay. Now we will switch to the project Solar Quest. Lancey, I think, is the name of the company. Raphaël Meyer, I think, is the speaker, and I hope, yes, okay. Hello, hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
So the floor is yours, please. How long, 10 minutes? Yeah, 8-10 minutes. Please, Raphaël.
Yes, so we had a very good presentation before, and it's quite of an honor to be the speaker just after. Indeed, within the answers and the question and answers, we talked a bit about how important is the heat generation in a city. Globally, in Europe, it represents more CO2 emissions than transportation, and that's clearly one very central aspect of the carbon neutral society through a decarbonization process that will imply retrofit of houses, electrification of EV cars, etc. So we propose today to talk about another use to generate heat, which is using electricity, carbon neutral electricity, with the help of energy storage that we aim to put everywhere and for everyone at Lancey Energy Storage, which is a young startup in Grenoble, in France. Grenoble, actually, that was awarded by the European Green City in 2022. So also an important topic at the city level. And here I will describe you the strategy of Solar Quest, which was a funded project at Lancey toward a world of prosumers. And I will explain a bit, if we can change the slides, what key drivers we are following. So if we can change the slide, that'd be perfect. There are, of course, this goal, this target that we all understand, to go to a carbon neutral society with a lot of renewables with the decarbonization of energy, etc., etc. But we have, on the other hand, the real society. We are not living in a perfect algorithm world. We are living with real people, with real citizens, with their fears, with their goals, with their own ambitions. And clearly, the price, the cost of energy, which is increasing dramatically fast since even this also traumatic event in Ukraine, and that will be probably sooner or later a limitation to a real carbon neutral society. And in a way, the yellow jacket crisis that we had sadly in France a couple of years ago is one expression of this problem. So we have not only to decarbonize our society, but also to keep a price of energy, a price of life, decent and acceptable for the society. And that's where we imagine that going to, and if we can change the slide, going to a model with self-consumption and simple solutions to go to the deployment of the self-consumption configurations, we can have then a more resilient carbon neutral model. And on the next slide, I will describe you the product, thank you, that has been developed through the European fundings, and which is called the Lancey Capella. That's an electric heating system fully developed by Lancey, 11 patent families behind. It's an electric heating system with the use of electricity to generate heat at home in a very comfortable way. And it's a system that embeds a battery storage with a microinverter in each single device. The idea, if you will, is to have a very simple solutions to install with a couple of minutes only to be set up. So very quick, very fast, and no specific certification or knowledge to install it. Everyone within this wonderful audience can install such a system. So very simple to use, very simple to install. And of course, a couple of technological bricks that will help to this carbon neutral society, the production of renewable energy, and at the end of the day, the goals that we all have in Europe. So very good level of comfort. You also have a couple of sensors within the device to have a smart piloting, turn off the device as much as possible. Also deploy a couple of demand response mechanisms, which will be helped, of course, with the main innovation that we bring into the heat generation, which is this battery storage, 800 watt hour of storage, 500 watts of micro inverter in each single device that will be then used to store electricity during the off-peak period when the electricity is cheap, or from the renewable sources at the building level or in the neighborhood in collective self-consumption. And of course, this stored capacity brought by the heating system, will be then used during the peak period to reduce the pressure onto the electric grid, and of course also reduce the overall cost of energy. And with this configuration, if we go to the next slide, we can make a massive retrofit of European houses with this configuration, which is relatively universal, very simple to use, and quite economic compared to more maybe performing system like the heat pump, but also much more expensive systems. And we still have to keep in mind the cost of the transition for the real life people. Here, what we have is a couple of photovoltaic panels on the rooftop, whose electricity will be managed by the energy storage that we have developed with our heating system. This heating system being itself very efficient, very performing, and using carbon neutral electricity to generate the heat during the winter. And during the rest of the year, the battery will be still running for this optimization of self-consumption. And we consider that with this very simple bundle, which is cheaper than a heat pump, you can actually manage the retrofit of a couple of millions of European houses and buildings within the coming years. You can go to the next slide. Something that is very important and worth noting is the energy management system that has to be deployed on the next slide, please, in parallel with this hardware replacement. Of course, we have to make a very efficient performing management of those solutions that we deploy. The idea here, if you will, is to simplify a better mechanism, a better programming of the heating system, which is again, but one of the first CO2 emitters in Europe, and if possible, add additional management constraints like the state of the grid in demand response mechanism, but also the quality of the electricity onto the grid. Here we can talk about fast containment reserve and different other mechanisms where we will try to help what we call a smart grid deployment, but which is in reality the perfect equilibrium between production and consumption. And that's, of course, can be deployed into parallel with this massive retrofit, and that's precisely what we do. One aspect is minus 35% of energy consumption savings in comparison with a traditional electric heating system. So clearly it has nothing to do with the traditional electric heating system, which has not necessarily a very good reputation in some countries like Germany, for instance, where the gas boiler initially was a bit the king solution, but with the recent crisis, of course, cannot be used and deployed anymore. And we do believe that here we can find a quite good alternative to this traditional heating system. Next slide, please. We have 35 people at Lancey in Grenoble. The production is done in France, but by a Bosch factory, as we will see. And thanks to this ISME European funding that we had, we could clearly change a scale and pass this first step of scale-up development with the development of core technology that will be then used for the next generation of apparatus, of devices. Next slide, please. Globally, our market is clearly in Europe, but not only. We also have a very important market for the electric heating system in North America, and where, of course, the need of decarbonization of heat is as important as it is in Europe. We will make this year a turnover of 4.5 million euros. Before the instrument SME, it was nothing. So we could really, we can really see here very concrete benefit of this project. And to achieve this worldwide market, we have a strategy that we will explain on the next slide, please. Here you have a couple of customers and realizations that we could do. We worked quite a lot actually with the social landlords, which is in France very important players of the low income people, and it's the case also in some other countries. And we are very proud that the probably most efficient electric heating system were first installed within this quite challenging sector of social housing. We worked also a lot with PV photovoltaics installers. The idea was really to propose them more advanced, more complete solutions, not only for the production of green electricity, but also on the demand side, on the consumption side, with the storage and this smart grid features that we will need at some point to go to a real carbon neutral electricity production. We've also worked with energy companies. We have ENGIE in our as an investor. We also worked with a couple of Stadtwerk, which is indeed, as it was previously said, a very interesting business model for an energy supplier. And we have been installed in a couple of new buildings with the very top standards in terms of energy efficiency, thermal insulation, and building resilience. That shows that indeed you can reach the best criteria in terms of building efficiency with a relatively traditional electric heating system. Next slide, please. We are entering a scale-up phase, but we have to be reasonable. We are 35 people, which makes a very small player on the HVAC system, which is, of course, with a very big competition at the worldwide level. So to fulfill our ambitions with this small team, in a way, we have opened a quite innovative business model in sharing our IP portfolio with a couple of players to attribute production licenses and distribution agreement for different kind of players for Europe and North America. Right now, we are producing our systems with Bosch in France. Initially, it was actually an automotive factory for the diesel car, so not exactly the product of the future. So that's the production site, the production factory that probably within some years will be endangered of closure with, of course, the development of the EV car. And here we are proposing them a new product, clearly in the sense of the energy transition, to save jobs, keep the activity of the site, and provide to us an industrial expertise, which is probably one of the best worldwide at Bosch company. On the other hand, we have already attributed 2 production licenses. One player is still under embargo. It's a European company, and the other one is Stelpro Design. It's a Canadian company producing for Canada and the US, and that's our route to market and route to success to go to this worldwide ambition of decarbonizing the heating generation. Next slide, please. Here you have a couple of roadmaps elements.
Raphael. 1 minute.
Yes,
please.
Perfect. Thank you. That's actually my last slide, so we should be on time. Thank you. This year is, despite the challenging situation of electronic components supply, as you all know, the first year of scale up that we are making since the start of production at Bosch. By next year, we will be launching our fully as-a-service commercial offer. The idea is to put no investment threshold for our customers, especially those customers having financial problems and no possibility of investment, and proposing to them to pay as a service, so each use of energy, the complete solutions, and which is for us a very real solution for letting those technologies, even for people without the possibility of investment. And we really believe that that kind of business model can be a mushroom trend for the European energy transition. By 2024, we want to introduce the first second life batteries in our storage capabilities, with actually bikes battery, not EV car, but bikes battery, which are actually very close from what we are using right now, and we believe that it can be a very good way to not recycle but to reuse those very precious lithium-ion batteries. And finally, by 2025 and 2026, after the deployment of grid mechanisms like demand response scenarios at the scale of the European grid, which is a bit a pan-European project, the smart grid that we need, and we want to participate into the elaboration of the smart grid, go to 100 million euros turnover, partially done by our own commercial force, the rest being done by our subcontractors, by our partners with this licensing strategy. I'll be pleased to answer your questions. And I hope that I've convinced you that electric heating and, more globally speaking, the self-consumption should be, will be a very important tool to go to a real and harmonious carbon neutral society. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Raphael, for your presentation. Is there from the panelists questions? You go, Matteo.
Maybe one. It's very interesting. Congratulations. Just one question. What's happening with the data that you're collecting through the usage of your devices? Do you have a strategy for that?
Yeah, very good question. So as any IoT provider, we are under the GDPR regulation. So it's quite precise what we can do and what we cannot do with those data. Clearly, they are very precious because they are collected in real time, and they are strongly linked with, by far, the main use of energy at home, which is the heat generation. That can represent up to 75% of the total energy consumption at home. And you have user detection sensors, etc., in every single room. So clearly, it's a very interesting data. From our side, we don't want to share this data with Google or any kind of companies like that. That's not at all our business model or our DNA, and we think that it could be counterproductive. But where we see a very useful use of this data is regarding the grid management. Basically, if you want to have a proper demand response mechanism, which is, to explain in simple words, just turning off one energy consuming device during a peak period at the electric grid scale. If you want to do that, which is of course a way to give a very strong, resilient electric grid, which is required for the development of renewables. If you can do that kind of mechanisms, being sure that you are not disturbing the final use, of course, you're going to have a very high acceptance of all the end users, of all the energy consumers. So we think that here we can have a let's say, responsible use case of using in real time the data of the end users. If possible, we would retribute them incentives, giving them money, if you will, each time we make a demand response mechanism. In this way, Sonnen company, which is the world leader of domestic storage system, with the Sonnen community in Germany, is paving the way for those mechanisms. And we consider here that we have also a participation of the end user into a carbon neutral society and into a more, how to say, responsible use of this very precious electricity. I hope I've answered your question.
Thanks, thanks, Raphaël. Yes, I think that you want Matteo to reply. Can I say something, or you please? I believe that, yes, a very valuable component of your innovation is this comfort building and demand response, of course. But, and of course, your solution can be a lot cheaper than the state-of-art heat pumps that are, however, a lot more efficient. So I wonder at what extent you think that you can, in the future, defend your decision technology against the lowering cost of electric heat pumps and the fact that with COP of 3, which is now the standard, you should for sure have 1/3 of cost to be competitive, not considering the possibility of air conditioning and cooling that heat pumps can offer, and the same advantages in terms of demand response, electrification of heat, but saving energy. And that is the key aspect. Are you really saving energy in comparison to other technologies such as heat pumps?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Indeed, a Joule heating system has 100% of efficiency, not less, not more, and forever. You will have no optimization of that. That's really physics that defines the yield of a Joule heating. Whereas, of course, a Carnot cycle, which is used for the heat pump, can go to 200, 300, 400, even more. Well, if you make the real yield, it's sometimes much lower than what the producer says, but still, it's at least twice or 3 times more efficient. No doubt about this. And indeed, you can reverse the cycle and make some cooling of the building in the summer, whereas, of course, a Joule heating system can only produce heat by definition. So you're absolutely right. And I'm not saying at all that the heat pump will not be one of the reference systems for the retrofit in Europe. That's for sure. And that's actually what we already observe since a couple of years, depending on the maturity of the market. But for instance, in the Netherlands, where gas has been forbidden for the heat generation since 2018, you have seen that indeed the heat pump has partially replaced the gas boiler. Well, my point is just to say that we have a couple of unfair advantages of the dual heating system compared to a heat pump, which is its flexibility, not only for piloting, but first of all for installation. And no other system can be installed by anyone within a couple of minutes. And that will be forever also a very intrinsic, very important advantage of this configuration of heat. And considering how massive must be the retrofit operations in Europe for the couple of years, we have to consider that 97% of the European building will have to be retrofit by 2050. And we talk about already 75% by 2030. That's almost impossible. And actually, we all know this. So if we want to have a chance, just a chance, to go closer from this objective, we have to simplify the processes. And on that, clearly, we are by far number one on comparing to the other system. So I'm not saying that it's perfect. I'm not saying that forever that it will be the only single solution where winners takes all. But I think that winner takes all, it doesn't exist with the energy transition. We are just all losers if we don't do this. So that's a bit my answer to that. We are part of the solutions, but not the only one for sure.
Thanks, thanks, Raphaël. I would like to leave the floor to...
I would have had a similar question, the comparison with the heat pump. Thanks.
Yes, for sure, simplicity of installation and low cost are a clear advantage, yes. But now I would like to give the floor to Marta, correct? Marta from SHE, so she will present us a very innovative and novel solution, hybrid solution, PV plus thermal, to produce both heating and electricity that could well be integrated in buildings, in district heating, and in also industrial solutions for high temperature heat. Please, Marta.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation also. Good afternoon. Maybe I need the slides. Okay, here there are. So all of us know that we are in a climate emergency and in a global energy crisis. This hard reality is primarily due to the polluting fossil fuels that we still use to power our energy systems. The last decade, the consumption of the fossil fuels has increased, and renewables has even not compensate this increase. When we talk about the renewable energies, most of people think in the need of high electrification. And talking about the solar energy, people think about photovoltaic solar panels. And yet, the global electricity consumption for electricity needs use are only 17% of total consumption, including transport. By contrast, 51% of the total energy that we consume is half, is 51% for thermal use, for heat. It makes sense then to produce and to support more renewable heat solutions and more than electrical renewable. Sorry. One of the most rentable solutions for heat is solar heat or solar thermal. This is the technology that converts directly the sun rays to the heat. It's direct and captures more than 3 times than photovoltaic. It's able to ensure the affordable and constant price because of the low operating cost, and also has a huge potential for energy independence, stability, and security of supply, because it fits with the decentralized installations. Of course, sorry, no. We need also electricity in our buildings and in our cities besides to the thermal use. specifically in global figures, 77% of heat and 23% of electricity. But we have, most of the case, a very limited space in buildings. So how can we address this challenge? At Ábora, we have developed a solution that fits perfectly. We are developer and manufacturer of hybrid solar panels, also named photovoltaic thermal panels, or PVT. These panels combines the production of both solar technologies, solar thermal and solar photovoltaic, simultaneously in one only collector, thus achieving more energy joules per surface. The origin of the PVT panels, or hybrid solar panels, was to compensate the relative inefficiency of the photovoltaic. Photovoltaic captures from the sun around the 20%. How is possible? By capturing the rest of the energy coming to the sun, which otherwise is lost as heat. Because of this, for this purpose, all hybrid solar panels has a heat recovery in the rear side of the photovoltaic laminate. There has been, and still there are, different models, different technologies for hybrid solar panels, which the more heat losses avoid, the more thermal energy produced. With AH-Tech technology from Ábora, we have developed the highest performance because we also avoid the losses, the heat losses by the front side. How make this? You can see the layers of our panel, of this panel. We, starting to the photovoltaic laminate, fix it to the back part of the photovoltaic panel. We fix heat recovery, thermal insulation, and aluminum housing to protect the whole assembly. In the front part of the photovoltaic laminate, we including a transparent insulation cover, which is composed by anti-reflective glass and a gas-filled space. Here you can see, in this way, these panels achieve until 89% of efficiency, 70% in form of heat and 19% in form of electricity. This generates far more energy than a photovoltaic panel only. And it's able to produce the same energy than solar collector and photovoltaic panel in half space, with a return of investment on average from 4 to 7 years. Here you can see an example in a public building in Paris. In this case, this building will produce 4 times more of energy over the 20 years of the lifetime, the installation, and it will avoid 4 times more than, of CO2 compared with only produce electricity, all in the same existing surface of the building. In this case, the economic numbers will be that this building has 2.5 times faster payback and 2.5 times greater accumulated cash flow. We have developed also important tools to deploy the technology as a monitoring system to validate the installations, because we can follow online the electrical and the thermal production, and also a calculation software to calculate the number of panels in function of the demand of heat and electricity. This panel has the potential to go further when highly performance supporting solutions are used together. as heat pumps, seasonal storage, tree generation, as well decentralized or in district heatings with all solutions. So after how far we had already coming in the evolution of the hybrid panels, the next thing had to be revolutionary, going to the heart of the PVTs from the origin. And that is what we did with the new C panel, solar heat and electricity. We create a new hybrid solar panel from scratch under the vision of going to the essential principle of transforming solar radiation into heat and electricity, avoiding the superfluous layers and optimizing the materials inside that really matter, with two objectives. One, achieve the maximum performance, and then extend the lifetime. Because extend the lifetime for a highly performance, clean production, clean energy device is a revolutionary thing that we can do today for the cities for tomorrow. If we extend the life, if a panel produce energy for more years, it means that they produce more energy. They produce more energy with less emissions, and of course, the cost, the levelized cost of the energy will be improved. To see how powerful is this point of the lifetime, you can see the graphs where we compare with the case of only use electricity, only use photovoltaic panels. With a reference, we use the reference of our current technology, AITech, and the options, the possibilities to up to we want to arrive with the She panel. We know already that the She panel, because of the materials, will be produce energy for more years. We are not sure yet if it will be for 30, 35, or 40 years. But is any of the options is undoubtedly the best options to install today, thinking of the future generations. It's important the next decade, I think, it's important the decisions that we take today in order to high efficiency, but not only, also the lifetime of the devices, the solutions that we implement in our cities. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marta. Thank you. Are there questions from the audience? Yeah, sure.
Thanks very much for a very good presentation. I wanted to make a point that having recovery of heat with photovoltaic how did you overcome that problem?
Thank you very much. Okay, in fact, it's not a problem. It's the main of the technology, because we take away the heat of the backside of the photovoltaic. Of course, it depends on the installation. The point of the temperature of installation is not the same. If you need heat for, I don't know, for a swimming pool or for a industrial process that need a higher temperature. But the thing is that when you put cold water in the panel, they don't heat the photovoltaic panel. They recover the temperature of the backside of the panel. Okay. Yes. Increase, but also takes away.
The main point that I'm curious to know more about is you are producing low temperature heat anyway. Yes, about 60 to 70 degrees max. So that is the main focus, the main market demand. Because it seems that this is a flat plate collectors, quite basic with relatively low cost. So where the temperature cannot be high, of course, of the heat produced, correct?
Correct. The flat collectors is the same. Is for low to medium temperature. For domestic heat water, 60 degrees. This is the.
And which kind of material you use for the thermal part? Is it a traditional, thermal collector, is it traditional copper, or do you use, innovative materials?
For the heat recovery, is traditional, is the traditional for flat panels. Aluminium and copper. Yeah, this is optimized, but because of the number of tubes and sections and other things. But the materials of the thermal part is the traditional one, which is enough efficient, very enough efficient.
And do you have a kind of, a software management of the heat? That means when you have to have certain, higher temperature, you change, you can module somehow the capability to move from optimizing the PV part or optimizing the thermal part?
No yet. With the system, the monitoring system, up to now, we measure the production, but we don't control this part. As you say, it's possible if these panels, for example, don't produce electricity because are connected in an inverter that for self-consuming and is the recent consume of electricity, then the thermal part increase the performance. So it's possible to make management, but by now we don't have developed this part to manage the heat.
Okay. And when you say that you can, make the technology work also over the 20 years of certification procedure, are you also looking at the standardization of this, increase of years of working? How you say that it can work 30 or 35 years? Are you performing standardization measures, or it's simply, an evaluation made in your labs?
It's based on the fact that how mainly photovoltaic along the years is degraded. So we avoid this part of the design, and we use another materials that don't suffer degradation. So the years are for sure, and for researchers last more years, but it's difficult. We don't know exactly how many years, because up to now we don't find test methods to analyze this kind. They in laboratories they test the lasting of the materials, but not up to this point. So it will be difficult to know for sure how long.
Okay, and last question to both Raphaël and you, Marta. From the public administration point of view, we saw before in the session with Fabien Gauthier that money is pushed also from the procurement side of public administration. So are you actually already discussing with some cities on how eventually to install your technologies on public administration rooftops, or your case, or in the case of Raphaël, in the buildings of public administration? Did you already have this kind of relation with the public procurement offices, or not yet?
In our case, not yet. We not by means of procurement. Our commercial and sales department has contacts, and in some cities, like in Zaragoza, the city where we manufacture the panels, we have close relation, but not by this way.
Okay.
Not to know.
Thank you. And from your side, Raphaël, are you still in?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Do you have a contact already with the public administration procurement offices, or not yet?
Yeah, we were luckily in relationship with Grenoble, actually City Hall. So our city in the Alps, and as a matter of fact, we made the very first installation with them under a very specific agreement. As at that time we had more like a prototype than really an industrial product, and with this very specific agreement that we could do. We could accept actually to not fulfill all the certification process, being just at the minimum CE level, and develop together, say, amelioration program, if you will, for the system. And right now we are trying actually another project with them, which is testing this as a service business model. So letting third-party player invest into the retrofit of a public building, and trying to put the monthly fee lower than the economy of energy provided by the solution. So in other words, to reduce the bill without any initial investment for a retrofit, a public building retrofit. And after a period of, we will see, maybe 10 or 12 years, let for free the installation, which is still producing. We have PV for still 12, 13 years more, and the storage just to replace, but the heating system is still working. Okay. And let for free this operation that way. And clearly, it's at the beginning, when you have not 100% terminated product, which in this case is a commercial product, but still, of course, it can be very helpful to work with a city like Dortmund, like Grenoble, like many great cities in Europe, but that wish to help a bit, and that's clearly a tremendous help for a startup.
Thank you, Raphaël. Before joining, before leaving 30 minutes of stop, I asked Matteo or Fritz if you've got questions to Marta or Raphaël. We have the presentation from Matteo in the next session, if it's fine for you.
Yes, maybe just one question. Again, we saw, part of the reason you were being here, you received support from the community, from the European Union. I just wonder, what did you find this support most valuable? And on the flip side, what could have been done different to accelerate even more your companies?
Well, in our case, the funding of the European Innovation Council was key in order to develop the new technology. I think without this funding, probably at the end we will make work in that, because we think that is the future and that is important to develop the technology and the new technologies and go beyond. But of course, without the funding, maybe at this time we are not, we was not able to start neither. So it's key.
And Raphael, just your last minute answer, because we are 5 minutes late. You go.
All right. Yeah. So clearly to find such a grant for a low TRL with big ambitions, of course, but low TRL. Clearly, public support and especially the European grants are just essential. And we are preparing a new EIC acceleration program, which, as you know, has two parts. One is a grant, and the other is equity. And what's pretty clever in this configuration is the fact that indeed it's very well adapted to the funding cycle of a startup, which is normally, of course, mainly, if it's not totally, with fundraisings. And it creates a very good trend that will probably help attracting other private investors. So it's on that. I think it's pretty clever how it's done and quite equilibrated. Then, if there would be one elements of progress in a way is of course the complexity of selection that actually imposes to have advisors and pretty much advisors. In other words, if you're single without any advisors as a startup, I mean, it's just probably impossible to get selected. So it's good for the advisors, but I think that for startups who don't know how to find the proper advisor, or who have no advisors, it's pretty unfair, because the selection is so high that probably no chance getting one EIC without really a very hard work, which is just normal. But also this work with an advisor. That'd be my only suggestion.
Yeah, we are fully aware of this, Raphael, the complexities to submit the applications. There is a huge competition, but then we can do a lot to simplify parts of the process to make it more friendly without the needs for specific advice from external consultants, so that the innovator, the entrepreneur, could be able to submit with his own skills, forces, and time availability the application. Of course, this work is in progress. But I thank you so much, Marta, and of course also Jan-Fritz and Matteo. We wait for your presentation at 2:45. Yes. 3:15, yes. So we will start again after a break of about 20 minutes now. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.